Hey guys, welcome to the Next Generation podcast, a space run by young people for young people, where we talk about stuff that actually matters to us, whether it's things we deal with every day or big issues shaping our world. Just a quick heads up, some of the things we will talk about today might be a bit sensitive or triggering. If anything makes you feel upset or worried, please don't keep it to yourself. Talk to a trusted adult or check out the services we'll mention at the end of the episode. Thank you so much for being here, and let's get started.
This is Next Generation Podcast, a Sporting Aid project produced by Ragdoll Media, made possible with the help of Safer Streets Bedfordshire, Bedfordshire Community Foundation, Bedford Borough Council, Bedfordshire Police, 4YP UK and Nexus Mentoring.
Hello and welcome to Next Generation Podcast. I'm Rue and I'm with Sid, Joey and Tony. Today we'll be talking on anti-social behaviour. So, Tony, what do you see as anti-social behaviour and what is it to you?
Before this, I'm not going to lie, I thought anti-social behaviour was trying to avoid people in public, not wanting to socialise with people. So that's my initial thoughts, but coming into it, it's behaviour that is seen as a crime, maybe harmful to others.
Sid, can you give an example of anti-social behaviour?
Antisocial behaviour can come in loads of different forms. It can be like graffitiing, trespassing, playing loud music, or even attacking somebody or being rude to somebody in public.
Joey, is this something that has impacted your life before?
I wouldn't say I haven't done anything to people in particular to hurt them, but like with the loud music, I can agree that I think everyone's done that before. I know I have, and like we've had neighbours and everyone come to us about loud music. Also with the shouting and being rude to other people, I think I can agree that I've done that, like just verbally with people that you've argued with, or like when you're in an argument, but that's about it.
And with your experience with antisocial behaviour, had you seen how it has affected your friends or family even?
I can see it with like friends and families, because when you are arguing with people, it can expand very quickly and other topics can be brought into it, which can impact you and like your family members and different people around you. So yeah, it has.
Tony, do you think you have seen your reputation be hindered by people around you exhibiting antisocial behaviour before?
I'd say one moment in particular, it was my 18th birthday and we had like a little garden party. So obviously the music was very, very loud, and we had new neighbours as well. So that was like one of our first interactions with them. We were just playing loud music, partying till late, and yeah, neighbours came around angry. So I feel like it definitely affected a relationship with neighbours. Especially having new neighbours, you want to be friendly, make sure they're comfortable, and form that friendship. Yeah, we clearly didn't. I'd say the loud music has obviously affected that relationship.
Okay, and Sid, considering that in this particular scenario, sometimes playing loud noise or being just loud during night in like private areas is considered a criminal offence, would you say that the other areas of antisocial behaviour that you mentioned earlier would also be considered offences?
Yeah, it could be involved with it, because if, for example, you're playing loud music and someone comes up to you and starts shouting at you, you'd shout back or you'd say rude things to them or slurs.
Why would you say rude things or slurs to them?
Well, if they would have said it to me, I would have said it back as defence.
Joey, what do you think the punishment for antisocial behaviour should be? Do you think it should be jail time, or do you think there should be actual real social consequences that affect your life?
I feel like there's different set barriers for what you do. So for example, graffiti, you can't really do it in private areas or people's land that they own or like property that they own, because obviously you're not in control of that. So I don't think you should be doing drawings or graffiti on anyone's private landing or even on like local buildings, because I feel like everyone has to see what you've done and you can get caught for what you do as well. I feel like with the loud music and the slurs, I think it's normal for people to have arguments and shout at each other. But then when it comes to the physical violence, I feel like that's the barrier where someone can get injured or hurt, and then it can cause maybe someone dying or just being in hospital. So I feel like there is set barriers for every antisocial thing that you do.
To go off of the amazing point you just made, Tony, in Parliament in a few days from now, as of when we're recording, they're going to introduce a new law where you're not allowed to play any loud sounds from speakers or digital devices on public transport, such as trains, buses, or the underground. This is going to be punishable by getting kicked off of this transport and also fines. What's your opinion on that?
In my opinion, I think it's fair. Just imagine you've come home from a long day of work, you're on the train, and you just got to put up with some rubbish music. I don't think it's fair that, loud sounds should be acceptable when the other people are not accepting it. Just because one person thinks it's fine, the people surrounding won't think it's fine. So I think it's fair.
I agree with you, basically 100%. If you're not playing good music, don't play it. I don't want to hear none of that English girl named Fiona, body oddly shaped like coat, because we know who you are who are playing these, and we know you like those songs. Turn them off. Anyway, carrying on from that point, it isn't about the music. It definitely isn't. It's not about the music. It's about hindering people's journeys. And on trains and on the underground and on buses, there are people who are disabled, people who are pregnant, people who might not be able to drive due to disabilities that aren't noticed or disabilities that you can very much see, and those people might get easily overstimulated or easily overwhelmed by loud noises or bright lights from those rainbow lights that you guys have in your weird speakers, and that is a very big issue when you're in public. From that point, Sid, what do you think causes people to go out of their way to make these kind of disturbances on other people's lives whilst knowing that there are definitely people who could be impacted by this negatively and more drastically than anyone could ever think of?
I think one of the main reasons could be misuse of alcohol or coming back from a party or, doing drugs, because it could make you want to listen to music on a loudspeaker or play it really loudly in a train station or a bus station. I think people who just want to be annoying play it sometimes, and I think it gets a bit too much.
On that point, there are many kinds of drugs and things that you can't really get as a child. Let's say alcohol, you have to buy that at a shop if you're over 18, or try really, really hard to convince someone to get it for you if you're under 18. And cigarettes, which don't exactly elicit a hard reaction out of anyone, but still you have to be over 18 to get them, or try really, really hard to convince someone. Drugs are a big effect. But who really is getting these drugs? Is it really children? Drugs, whilst they're becoming more popular with children over the years and years and years that they've been around, they've always been an adult-centric thing. These adults are the ones using drugs. So on that point, on what I just said, Sid, by your previous point of drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and weed and cocaine and horse tranquilizer or whatever people are doing nowadays, I don't know, I ain't one of these kids. If adults are the main people getting access to these drugs, isn't there some kind of logic that adults are the ones doing these, and we're putting all this pressure on young people, and we're punishing young people for being outside? In my local neighbourhood, young people aren't allowed to congregate in fields anymore, and I live in a mass of fields, like a literal mass of fields, and as soon as some young kids decide we're going to ride our bikes down to the field, there's a post on the Neighbourhood Watch Facebook about it. Every single middle-class Pilates Stanley crop-holding mother is yapping about it. So, from there, should we really be punishing children, or should we be punishing the adults who enable this and also take part in it themselves?
I think that we should punish both, because in my opinion, I think children get off their parents, but at the same time, children decide to do it, even if their parents aren't the ones doing it. So I think that we should punish both in some situations, because if the parents is doing drugs and the children starts doing drugs because of them, I think we should punish the parents. But if they both just do it without no, connection, I think we should punish both. But if we're going back to the field situation, I think if the parents go on the field, it could influence the children to do it, because then it makes them feel that it's fine, you know, let's go on the field, you know, let's have fun. And I think that it's a bit too much for these children when the parents are the one in control.
Okay. I'm going to snap back to your point, but I'm going to go on a little bit of a side tangent. Where I live, it's quite highly surveilled. There hasn't been many crimes. There's been like one recently. And it's been quite like, and it's all been very like highly guarded. And in my neighbourhood, if you're like 12 to 13, no one really cares about you. Not even the youth clubs. The youth club that's in my neighbourhood is filled with a few 11-year-olds, and they all kind of get away with everything around there. I know I used to help out over there. Going off of your point, shouldn't we be giving children the freedom to experiment? You get parents saying, back in my day, I was allowed to bike out to the field and I'd tell my mum I'll be home by 7 and I'd be home by 15 and they'd be like, hell yeah. And honestly, whilst it isn't the 70s and you shouldn't be able to just go out and get home at 15, whatever time that is, nowadays, I know you can't just do that. There's more dangers outside in the world. There's a higher population. There's more access to technologies that help people do criminal activities like trafficking and kidnapping. There are vans. You can just haul a kid into a van, drive off. What are they going to do? Chase you? No, it's a van. But on that situation, should the parents not be giving their children the freedom to experiment? Should we give them a healthy environment to experiment? Should we foster better places for children to actually live out their lives, give more funding to things like youth clubs, wink wink nudge nudge, or charities that help counsel youths, or after school activities, extracurriculars, sports, and so many other things that children just don't have access to nowadays because their parents are too paranoid to send them outside. Instead, they keep them inside alone on their iPads where they just rot all day. I'll hand that over to anyone who's willing to raise their hand.
I have some experience in experimentation, but I think first off that children should experiment with what they do and, you know, stuff that they live up to or what's around them. But I think it comes with some risks in life. Like, once I was out with my friends and there was an abandoned place up the road, so we decided to check it out, and we went in and we started graffitiing everywhere, and it was fun, you know, till we heard police sirens and we knew they were getting close to us, so we ran away. And that same group of friends as well influenced me to try weeds and drugs, and I don't do it no more, but I always look around at all these people and say, like, how could you do that even though I've done it?
There is a level of regret in what you're saying, and I think that it's very commendable for you to take responsibility for your actions.
I'm going to go against what Sid said, and I think that children should not be allowed to experiment just because of the risk. I feel like if children experiment from a young age, they get used to it, and that's when it becomes an addiction, and then obviously their whole future might be altered because of the experiment of trying new things out. I feel like a parent's job is to make sure no risks happen to their children, that children should be safe and not do the bad things. So yeah, that's why I'm going against Sid.
I would like to say my thing. I agree with both opinions. I feel like when you're young, you should be able to explore and do stuff, but also know the limit of where you're doing too much. Like, for example, drinking alcohol, like to the extent you can drink alcohol too until you start doing bad things that you regret. And I also agree with what Tony said with how they should be raised up properly by their parents. But there are some kids that parents, like from a young age, their parents already like drug addicts, alcoholics. So their parents don't really raise them or teach them the correct way. So they end up looking up to their elders where they might be doing the wrong thing. So they might try it out. And then later on in life, when they see the people doing good and doing successful, they realize that they should stop smoking or drinking or doing all that bad stuff.
And I think it's mostly up to the parents with what they teach you, and if they, you know, decide to let you be you and do whatever, or they teach you the correct way to live.
You're forgetting something. the correct way to live is subjective. Adults might go out and take their speakers and they might be screaming like, oh, we hate whatever slur for this race is, or we hate whatever slur for this sexuality is, or something. And kids learn from that. But when does it get to the point where it's unpunishable for the child and it gets to the point where you've got to take it back? Because our justice system focuses so much on the current, on the now, on what's going on right now. They don't look at the root of the situation. And how far back can you go to see that anti-social behaviour was really instructed by the adult in the situation, the adult that raised the child? And is it still anti-social behaviour if it's an adult? Or is it just pure ageism?
I think it's still antisocial if an adult does it, because as an adult, you're supposed to be mature. You know, your brain stops developing. You should know what's right and wrong. I feel like, again, they should be punished, because if young people look up to that and they think an adult's doing it, they think it's acceptable. And I feel like it's the adults' actions that are passed down on the younger generations.
But then I think whatever the adult does, like if you punish them and send them to jail, it will inflict the young person to decide, oh yeah, I'm going to do that, I want to go to jail, you know, I'll look cool doing that, you know, to all my friends, to all my cousins, you know, to older family members. And then if they go to jail or do drugs, then it will be passed down to the next person, then they'll pass it down to their children, or their children will pass it down. And whatever the parent does, something will always inflict the child on whatever they do, like drugs, going to jail, smoking, hurting somebody, like whatever. So for say, if the dad or the mum abuses their child, then their child could grow up to abuse their child.
So, the conclusion that we have reached today is that antisocial behaviour is inflicted by one's environment. And whilst there might be some people in this room who think we haven't explored the topic fully, this is the conclusion we have reached for today. And I want anyone at home or at school or on the way to work with a massive speaker in a train station, blaring it out to everyone so they can hear it, or in a basketball court, I want you to think about our final point, which is that the environment that you grew up in will directly affect your behaviour as you grew up. This is a fact that I feel like we all know, but we haven't really explored when it comes to public behaviour or how we treat other people. And we've really only explored it within our mental in society. Like, my parents hit me, so I'm depressed, you know, type of situation. Obviously, entirely valid. I said that like it was not. It is. But my parents hit me, so I hit other people when they say bad things about me. No one talks about that, especially when it's in public. Because what you see is someone just hitting somebody because they said something. Because they said something that sounded slightly offhanded. That person might now be really anxious because their parents used to verbally harass them or verbally abuse or mentally abuse them growing up. But obviously we don't know that. So, to the listener, wherever you are, if you're at home, school, blaring this on a speaker in a train station or on your bike or in a basketball court, whatever you're doing, I want you to think about the impact that you're having on other people's lives, how you're affecting the environments around you, of your parents, your siblings, your cousins. Think about it and think, how can I make the environment for my sibling, cousin, parent any better than it already is? And let them foster an environment where they can express themselves healthily without hurting or disrupting other people. And this has been the Next Generation podcast. Thank you for joining with me, Rue, Sid, Joey, and Tony. Goodbye.
This is Next Generation Podcast, a Sporting Aid project produced by Ragdoll Media, made possible with the help of Safer Streets Bedfordshire, Bedfordshire Community Foundation, Bedford Borough Council, Bedfordshire Police, 4YP UK and Nexus Mentoring.